Hello, boys, girls. Welcome to Art in a Flash. What we're going to do is we're going to start a project. It's going to be like a 5-week art project. And so today's going to be the beginning of all of the projects centered around one big theme. And so all of these projects are based off of one very inspiring artist. I have ran across an artist that has done something that no other artist has ever done, and it has inspired me to create all of these projects. And like I said, each week we're going to do a different project centered around this one artist and his work in sort of this nice, cool theme. So if I have ran across an artist that has done something that no of the other artists have done, let me take a minute to show you what some of the artists have done and created in the future. So let's begin all the way at the very beginning. Do you know who the first painters were? Well, let's go all the way back to sort of before the Ice Age, and we had people that, this is after the dinosaurs, but we have people that were, didn't have the knowledge and skills to build homes and houses like we have today. And so a lot of times they would find shelter in caves. And so they would go in these caves and using torches and a campfire to use as light. And as they're sitting in these caves and living in these caves, they would started telling stories. And a better way to tell stories than with pictures. And so they started drawing on these cave walls. And a lot of times they would draw pictures of animals like horses and buffalo or bulls, other animals that they might have hunted or has seen. And so to tell our story about this artist who has done something that none of the other artists have ever done before, we went all the way back to the very beginning painters that I can think of, and these are cave paintings from Lascaux, France, and these are some of the earliest recorded drawings and sort of our history. Now, speeding up time quite a bit, let's go to the Renaissance times. Michelangelo is the artist who painted this painting. This is just a portion of it called The Creation of Adam. And Michelangelo actually, similar to the cave paintings, painted this actually on a wall. But it wasn't in a cave. It was actually in a huge, ginormous church that we called a cathedral. And this is just one of many paintings in this ginormous church. And I think it took him 16 years or more to complete just painting the ceiling and some of the paintings that were in this ginormous church in Italy. And so I wanted to go over some of these very important painters in the Renaissance time, like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Donatello. And these are painters who, and inventors like, Leonardo da Vinci, they were doing things in a very new way. They were really trying to explain things through science and like I said, trying to do things and rethink things that they've always done. And they call this the Renaissance time. Now, Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael, and Donatello, you're probably thinking, hey, we just named the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, believe it or not, the artist who drew the comics for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was inspired by these Renaissance artists, and that's where he came up with the names for the Ninja Turtles. And so we have, this is Donatello, this is Michelangelo, this is Raphael, and this is, of course, what you can tell by the beard, Leonardo da Vinci. Of course, we talk about him quite a bit because he's the painter who painted the Mona Lisa. All right, moving forward in time, talking about people doing things in a new way, we have Vincent van Gogh, we have Claude Monet. Both of these artists wanted to go outside. They didn't want to sit inside stuffy studios, art studios. They wanted to go outside and paint pictures of light and how, want to capture the moment at that point in time. We also have Renoir, we have Mary Cassatt, and these are the artists in the Impressionist movement. And Impressionists were artists that were trying to paint new ways, painting people doing ordinary things, painting landscapes at that particular moment to capture the lighting. These were the Impressionists. So we've gone from cave paintings to the Renaissance to the Impressionism. Now let's go to modern times. This is called modern art. And I'm going to put an extra word to this, and let's call it abstract modern art. And so we have artists like Picasso, who wanted to paint pictures with lines and shapes and colors to express his feelings or the person that he's trying to paint. Instead of trying to make it look real, he wanted to make it abstract. So he wanted to show the emotions of the painting. So we have Picasso, we have Mondrian, who's just interested in drawing squares and rectangles and painting them in with primary colors. We have Joan Moreau, who makes these whimsical pictures using shapes. It's a very new, interesting way in drawing a bird in this case. And we also have Paul Klee, who painted a picture of a park. I know it's a lot of P words, but it's very abstract. But even though we can, I can still see that it's sort of a park with trees and pathways, but it's done in an abstract style. It's not done in a realistic style. So we've gone from cave paintings to the Renaissance to the Impressionists to modern abstract art. But let's go to one more section in time and see some artists that had impacted me while I was going to school and learning about art. Let's look at George O'Keeffe's artwork, who painted cow skulls, desert scenes, and big, ginormous paintings of flowers. Salvador Dali, who painted melting clocks, and we talked about him during our daylight savings time. And Grant Wood, who painted American pictures or American scenes, and he had a really good way of telling stories in his paintings. And all three of them have very, very similar styles, and these are the artists that influenced me. So the question is, if there's one artist who's done something that none of the other artists has ever done on this planet, and so there's one artist who is out of this world. There is one artist who has gone above and beyond all of what the other artists have done. So do you know who this artist is? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Alan Bean. And you're sitting there thinking, who's Alan Bean? And I'm going to say, thank you for asking. Well, Alan Bean, what makes Mr. Bean so special? Well, he's the artist who painted the moon. He's the astronaut who actually painted the moon. He's, as far as I know, he is the only artist that I know that that has gone to the moon. And so I ran across this book during our virtual book fair. I ran across this book and I said, "Ooh, this looks like an interesting book." And boy, was I right. This is one of the most neat and interesting book I've seen in a long time. It's written by Dean Robbins and illustrated by Sean Rubins. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to read this book to you real quick, and then I will explain our big, huge art activities that for the next 5 weeks, we're going to be doing art projects that sort of was inspired by the astronaut who painted the moon. The book and the story about Alan Bean. So sit back and let me read the book to you real quick. Enjoy the pictures, and then we'll pick up with an art project at the end. This is Alan Bean's words. My paintings record the beginnings of a quest never to end. Our journey out among the stars. Lights flashed, a rocket rumbled. Alan Bean's dream was about to come true.
In T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
The rocket roared off the launch pad. Alan shook his head, shook in his heavy space suit. The other astronauts were shaking too. Richard Gordon flipped switches on the control panel. "That's a lovely liftoff," Pete Conrad shouted over the noise. The shaking stopped as the spacecraft gained speed. Alan was in outer space. He had trained for so long as an astronaut and a scientist, and soon he would walk on the moon. Alan gazed out the window, marveling at the shapes and colors in space. The sky turned black. The earth was a blue and white ball glowing in the darkness. The moon was many shades of gray. Its mountains and craters seemed bigger the closer he got. Alan loved to think about the way things looked. As a boy, he made model airplanes to hang in his room. Green for the wings, red stripes for the tail, yellow stars along the sides. He dreamed of being a brave pilot himself one day. Alan volunteered for the Navy flight training. He learned to take off, soar through the air, and glide in for smooth landings. The earth looked breathtaking from the cockpit. The white clouds above, the green fields below, the blue all around. Alan wished he could paint what he saw. So guess what he did? He found an art class to teach him about patterns and forms. Alan dabbed his brush on canvas to paint a vase of flowers. His flowers didn't look exactly real, but he didn't want them to. They were brighter and bolder than real ones because he let his imagination take over. The painting showed how stunning the flowers looked through Alan's eyes, how they made him feel. The spacecraft flew 240,000 miles in 4 days. The moon was so close, Alan could see valleys and ridges. He and Pete, the other astronaut, got ready to walk on a new world. Alan strapped on an oxygen pack so he could breathe outside. He stepped through the hatch to the most amazing sight. The moon was barren, but also beautiful in its own way. Gray dust as far as he could see. Thousands of black craters. Hard white sunlight. And everything perfectly still. Alan and Pete pushed a red, white, and blue American flag into the dust. Alan puzzled over the strangeness of outer space. He and Pete took dozens of photographs. They set up scientific experiments to measure the moon's soil and gases. Even in his spacesuit, Alan was much lighter than on Earth. He had fun bouncing around on his tiptoes. He could run and run without getting tired. His boots made deep marks where no one had stepped before. Alan was super strong in the moon's gravity. He threw a rock and watched it go up, up, up. Would it ever come down? The 3 astronauts zoomed back to Earth at 25,000 miles per hour. They splashed into the Pacific Ocean to end their awesome adventure. Alan's friends asked him about his time in space. What was it like up there? He tried to explain the moon's barren beauty, but words weren't enough, and his photographs just showed a grim and gloomy place. There was so much more to the moon than that, so much magic and mystery. How could Alan share his story so others would understand? He pulled out his paints and brushes. Alan knew he was the only artist ever to leave the Earth, the only artist ever to see the moon up close. Maybe a painting could show how it felt to be in outer space. Alan began his work like a scientist. He built a model of the moon's surface and used electric light as the sun. The model helped him paint the angles and shadows of the light. Then Alan let his imagination take over. He added red and purple to the gray dust, the blue and green to the black craters, yellow and orange to the white sunlight. The moon didn't look exactly real, but Alan didn't want it to. The painting showed his stunning outer space look through his eyes, how it made him feel. He hoped others would feel the same thing, the wonder of walking on a new world. Alan liked his moon painting so much, he did another one, and another, and another after that. He mixed even brighter and bolder colors on his palette. Could he add real pieces of outer space to his paintings? Alan tried stamping them with astronaut boots. He scratched them with tools he'd used on the moon. He sprinkled dust from his spacesuit onto the wet paint. The surface grew as rough and rugged as the moon itself. A museum displayed Alan's paintings for everyone to see. Other astronauts came to remember their own awesome adventures in space. Boys and girls come too. They marveled at the shapes and colors. They felt the wonder of walking on a new world. Some dreamed of being brave astronauts themselves one day. Others dreamed of being a great artist. And some dreamed of being both. So I want to share, this is in the back of the book. It shows at the top row 3 photographs that Alan Bean took while being on the moon, or pictures that were taken of him. And so the bottom row are the paintings that Alan Bean painted of his great experience. And so you can compare what the photographs look like, and then you can also compare to what how Alan saw and perceived these images and this experience, this great experience that only a few people, I think he's the 4th person to actually walk on the moon, but he's the only artist who actually had been there and was able to paint his experience. I love this photograph, which is also in the very back of the book, because the title is, The Astronaut Who Painted the Moon, and just the idea of the art easel and the paints and painting the landscape of the moon while being on the moon is just one of the most awesome ideas I've seen in a long time. So this is Alan Bean. Here he is in his painting studio, and you can see some of his pretty popular moonwalk paintings in the background. And we see a painting over here of one of his. It's actually a drawing of one of his paintings. And Alan Bean wrote this: "It is my dream that on the wings of my paintbrush, many people will see what I saw and feel what I felt, walking on another world some 240,000 miles from my studio here on planet Earth." Alan Bean. So I was looking at this book, and I just really, really enjoy the story, but I also really enjoy the painting. And I took the cover off of my book. It's one of those paper covers that protects the book. And they actually did a different cover on the hardback book. And so this is actually a painting by the illustrator, Sean Rubins, who I wanted you to see some of his artwork too. And so I want to also introduce you to Sean Rubins. Here's Sean Rubins. Now that's when he was a kid, and this is where he's a little bit older and working actually on his studio. And so now I'm sort of curious of some of the other books that he's illustrated, because I really do enjoy looking at his artwork. But today I really wanted us to focus on Alan Bean. And this is, I want to show you some of his paintings. They're actually in museums. and you can go and see them. And I would assume they're probably at a museum and NASA or Space Center. And so I just love looking at these, and they have so much texture. Vincent van Gogh would be so impressed. And like I said, Alan Bean used his one of his astronaut boots to make imprints. He used his hammer, which had a round end on one end and sort of a pointy part on the other end. And so he actually sort of sculpted the canvas and making these marks and indents, and then sort of painting the picture on top. And so I just wanted to show you and share some of his awesome paintings of this unique experience of walking on the moon. And trying to, I like his suit there, and he's holding the camera and trying to record it, all of this for all of us to enjoy here on Earth. I like the reflections in their spacesuit. And again, you can see the huge, ginormous. It looks really big, but this is his moon boot. There's the circle imprint from his hammer, and all these scratch marks are from the other end of his hammer, as he had to collect space dust and rocks so that we can study him here on Earth. So here's Alan Bean all dressed up in his spacesuit. I would assume this is before his mission. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit as we get into our art project. Look at his suit. We see the American flag. We also see the NASA symbol, and these are what we call patches, and they sold these patches on the astronaut suits, and for each mission they always come up with a new design with a new patch, and this is the Apollo 12, which is Conrad, Gordon, and Beans. Those are the three astronauts that did it, and I really like their design on their patch, because this reminds me of the Christopher Columbus's ship as he was exploring and discovering new worlds here on Earth and new countries. And it also reminds me of the Pilgrim's ship, the Mayflower. But this time it's sort of in space, and we also see the picture of the moon. So there's a lot of cool imagery that they use on these patches that they would sew on these astronaut suits. And so my thought is we have a mission. Our project for the next 5 weeks is, if we are astronauts, if we're artists and astronauts, and we travel to a new planet. Let's say NASA discovered a planet just outside of our solar system, and it's going to be our job to go and explore this new planet. And so that's going to be our mission for the next 5 weeks until we sort of carries us to the end of the school year. And so what would your patch for your mission, what would it look like? What kind of designs would it have? You know, the Apollo 11 had an eagle and looked like it's landing on the moon. Here's the Endeavour. The Endeavour is the spaceship. Here it is again, sort of a cross between a rocket and an airplane. And so I thought these patches for all of these different space missions throughout our space history, I thought these were really, really, really neat. And these are all of the Apollo missions. And like I said, Alan Bean was on mission number 12. So what would your mission patch look like? Again, everyone, what would your patch look like for our mission, that we're going to go and explore a new planet? So what would your mission patch look like? This is one that I sort of sketched. I just used a stencil to make the circle. I used a triangle to make the top part. I made up the rocket. I put Earth, that's the planet that we're leaving. There's our moon, which has already been explored. And this is the new planet that we're pretending that NASA has found outside of our solar system. And we're going to go and explore as artists and astronauts. And so what would your patch, what kind of design would you want on your patch to represent our mission? So have fun with this, and just be creative. And there's no right and wrong. And if you're doing this virtually, hang on to your drawing, because what we're going to do is we're going to put it together and make like a book or an art portfolio for at the end of the school year. So if you send it to your teacher, they give it to me, I can sort of put the book together for you, or you can do that at home. So boys, girls, our first assignment is to draw a patch to represent our mission.